Today, we're transforming this old, outdated master bedroom
into this mid-century modern inspired space. So let's get started on modern builds. Wait, Mike's first flip. Now this room is not huge, but it at least has a huge window. My big plan is to take out all of this space and incorporate it into a giant master closet. And that'll really help this feel like a true master, considering it's not the biggest room.
And don't forget to stay tuned to the end of the video where I'll have a full cost breakdown. After removing the trim around the window and the baseboards, I broke down the closet. Joining right next to this closet is a living room closet that I'm going to absorb into this master closet to make it feel extra special.
Let's grab the safety glasses. Okay, and this next part is not advised. I really thought that would go smoother. I'm glad I didn't get hurt though. Sparta!
In this shot, you can see how much space we're gonna be gaining, almost doubling our overall closet size. And since we're utilizing all that headroom, it really does feel like even more space. Now, I should say I am a DIYer, not a certified contractor or anything like this. And at this point in the project was where, well, I thought I might be a little in over my head.
Great news, everybody. Yesterday, I had a friend with a whole lot more framing experience than me climb up into the attic to double check that wall and span was not load bearing. My initial assumptions were correct, which means we can have a flat ceiling and wall. The 2x6 right here on top of the wall was used to connect the drywall. It's not holding up anything else, but I am gonna put some bracing in between these two headers for new drywall and the old drywall to connect to.
The first thing I did was just square up this big repair that I was gonna need to make. This made a ton of dust, and I was glad I had my RZ mask.
And this insulation is perfectly fine, so I'm gonna bag it up, and then once we get this repair done, I'll throw it back up there. Woo!
The basic idea was simple, just add a new ceiling joist in the center of this opening. I also beefed up the corner of this wall that's underneath that new joist. This board I'm connecting here is to make sure our new and old boards are in plane with one another, and now it's time to cut the new piece of drywall for our repair. And this is a 10-foot long sheet, and I'm glad I had it. This is easy to cut by just scoring on one side with the utility knife and then flipping it over and snapping it to size. It was a little bit of a tricky piece to manage, but I was able to get it up there, and after I had it secured all the way around, I added that small freeform piece before finally closing up our walls. And I'm no drywall pro, but if I had to give a tip here, it would be to make sure you don't screw so far in that you break the paper on the face of your drywall.
The closet repair is going great, and now it's time to take care of the doorway going into the living room.
I did the simplest thing possible, just nailing some 2x4s together to fit that opening and then patched it with drywall. So now we've got all of our walls closed up and this room is looking way bigger.
Super pro.
To get a good sturdy corner, I used this plastic corner bead, but in the rest of the house, I didn't use screws. Instead, I used a spray adhesive, and I found that to be a little bit easier and it prevented dimpling. But once again, just don't screw in too aggressively and you should be fine. Now tape's on and it's time to apply some ultra lightweight joint compound everywhere we've got old and new drywall meeting. After this first coat of joint compound, I'll come back and sand it to smooth things out and apply a second, third, and fourth coat until it's perfectly feathered. On the bulky stages, I used this powered drywall sander, which I'll leave linked down in the description, along with all the other tools, materials, and supplies I used. It saved me a ton of time, even though it made a bunch of dust. And this is what our room looks like after all of our drywall repairs, and now it's time to spray on a new texture to blend it all out.
I rented this sprayer from Home Depot. It's a Graco 1400. It's about 60 bucks for 4 hours and around 100 bucks for a day.
This machine has a really big hopper you fill with watered down joint compound, and then you pick the nozzle for the finish you want. I want a super light orange peel texture that just blends out any inconsistencies in this old and new drywall texture. The idea is to move in random patterns, that way people don't notice a pattern. If you just go up and down or side to side, people will see that through the paint and it will not look good. If I had my choice, I would skim coat the whole house just like I did on my previous Joshua Tree place, But that house took me about 2 weeks to skim coat, and it was only half the size, so there was no way I was doing that here. But after paint, this really light texture does look contemporary.
Okay, so that was very encouraging. I got a really good blend. Come check this out. So on this wall, there used to be a really bad seam, but check that out now. I think it's gonna be totally seamless.
That is drywall texture complete, and we're moving on to paint. I'll be using the Wagner Control Pro 170 to paint this space, and what's cool about it is it can pull directly from a 5-gallon bucket. I applied a coat of white primer everywhere first because of all of the raw joint compound. This is gonna soak up the first coat of whatever you spray, and primer's way more affordable than the bare all-in-one that I'm applying to the walls and ceiling.
That took 13 minutes, way faster than it would have been with a roller. Awesome.
This is the actual white color that's going on the ceilings and walls, and it's called whipped cream, but it's basically a pure white, just a tiny bit softer. The next day I came back and demasked the entire house, and I was surprised how much bigger every room felt.
I love that window.
All of this natural light bouncing around is awesome, and now it's time to focus on our floors. The damage in this room isn't as bad as some of the others, but I'm excited because I'm installing new luxury vinyl plank flooring in a nice gray wash from the company Floret.
I've got to install these planks backwards so they can join the rest of the floors we've already put down.
What I'm gonna do is angle my plank so the groove can slide underneath this board, making sure not to damage it. But as you can tell, I definitely don't have a 1/4 inch gap. So I traced away the material that I needed to cut with my jigsaw, then I could put my flooring in place and put the spacers against the wall for my first row. I cut the other pieces just like this, and it was time to start moving. Rows 2, 3, 4, and so on were way quicker because once you know you've got your straight line established, all you need to do is make sure that you're not repeating a seam pattern. When installing your boards backwards, you can do them one at a time like this, just knocking them into place. And LVP is so awesome because you can score it and snap it so that you cut it to size while you go. And for some floors, it's easier to lay out the whole row and then connect it all as one piece, especially if you have somebody giving you a hand. One person's totally doable though. After experimenting just a little bit, I found that it was my preference to lay out the whole row and then set it in place, rather than going one piece at a time. At least backwards for the shorter rows, it was more convenient. And if you want to pick up a Floret sample pack, there's a discount linked below.
And that is how you install vinyl floors backwards.
I've still got flooring to put down in the closet area, but first, let me show you the sliding doors that I got for this space.
I have ordered a very cool closet system from IKEA. Online, you'll see the listing said 94.5 inches. And my ceiling is just a little bit higher than that from the floor. Basically 96 inches from the floor to the ceiling.
I cut down this 2x4 so I could bring down this little miniature header so that the closet opening would be just a little bit smaller. The closet doors have quite a bit of adjustability, but I had it set to the smallest possible opening. I taped, mudded, and textured this so that it matched all of the other drywall, and after paint, it blended out pretty much perfect.
That's looking pretty good so far. I'm happy with it. So now let's switch to focusing on the flooring. I want to make sure that the floors I've already laid down stay floating, and that's why I'm going to be using this spacer piece directly underneath. This flooring piece isn't as wide as the track, so it'll cover and act as a transition piece.
I made sure that the lines on the new floors matched the rest of the room, and this time I put them in the traditional way, which is easy to knock in place.
Honestly though, it's easier to link the two pieces together before you attach the edge of one row to the next.
And I don't want to do a long spiel about how to install floors again, so I'm just going to do a little montage and turn the music up.
And I definitely want a full piece where this old closet dividing wall used to be.
I had a really smooth transition, and if there was any low spots, I made sure to use a shim underneath that section of floor. I just did that in a couple of small locations. And with these last little bit of floors down, I could finally say flooring was officially complete. You could no longer see the original floors anywhere in the house.
Now let's get our floor rail down.
Pretty much everything from IKEA is modular, and I needed to cut the floor tracks to length, and I used my angle grinder with a metal cutting abrasive disc. This left me with a pretty clean cut I just needed to sand the burrs off of. After that, I took the pieces inside and connected the two rails together and put adhesive strips on the bottom, and this is what's going to connect it to the floors. I also ended up adding some screws off camera. And I just recently got a laser level, and it's come in handy so many times since I've gotten it.
That's really stuck on there.
I also needed to cut the top tracks to length, but I used the same steps, so I didn't show that on camera. Next, after the doors were put together, I could throw in the panels that I chose this wood, gray wood pattern with. What's really cool about this is the panels are relatively affordable, and if I ever want to change up the style or design, I can swap these out and it won't cost that much to get a brand new look. And with the trim on, you can see just how good this looks. What a giant upgrade. We're not done with this closet yet though. I've got the full organization system to build that's going on the inside. To begin, I pre-assembled all of my vertical dividers, and then after that was complete, I put together all of my drawers. And I've got to hand it to them, IKEA makes things so easy to put together, and it's kind of surprising because they don't even have words in their instructions. Once I had all of my pieces ready and a good idea of what I was doing, I removed all of my doors and then got my laser level back out so I could screw in my French cleat. I wanted to make sure that this was installed into the 2x4 studs behind the drywall so that this thing could bear a lot of weight and it would just be sturdy. I centered this whole organizer, and the vertical dividers are spaced out evenly, and they've got these little leveling feet on the bottom which are pretty convenient. I just screwed on these plastic fasteners everywhere there was a shelf, and this whole thing just came together on its own. And I guess you could assemble this in different ways, but I tried to mirror what was on the pictures.
Perfect.
There's a cool assortment of different storage types like this basket and more traditional drawers.
Nailed it. Well, we didn't use any nails. I'll set up a time lapse to get the rest of this taken care of. This IKEA assembly really is so straightforward. You just got to take your time and follow the steps.
This closet can fit different size openings because on each end there's this expandable closet rod, so really you could have a big 24-inch wide opening on either side to make this utilize an even larger space. Oh, and best believe I saved these manuals for whoever's got this place next. In this blurry shot, you can see the whole system, and now it was time to put the doors back on, which is really easy to do. The handles that came with this are really sleek, super minimal, but it is enough to grab onto so you don't make as many fingerprints on the doors. And now with these sliding doors, you've got access to the middle of your closet and either side, so there's less dead space.
So this is a ton of storage and it looks awesome.
This pop of natural wood tone is big.
On to the next step. Inside here, I've got motorized roller shades.
And the coolest part is these are rechargeable, meaning no wiring required.
Already taking care of cleaning up the windowsill, which was in okay shape.
I applied a couple of coats of paint after sanding it with 150 grit, and then applied latex caulk on all the corners.
Now all that's dry and we are ready for install. As you can see, we've got 6 brackets here, so I'm gonna space those out before I transfer marks above the window so that I can drill and screw these in.
And if you're curious, I'm using an 1/8-inch drill bit. That works really good for pre-drilling 4 construction screws, but any small bit smaller than the screws will work. And then your roller shade should pivot and snap into place.
And now, it's time for the moment of truth.
Dun 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 dun.
All right, well, before it gets too dark in here for you to see me, I'm just gonna let you know I am so excited.
There's just something about remote-controlled shades that feel so premium.
Oh, and it just stops like that, perfect. And these are our light blockers so that these are true blackout shades.
On each of the light blockers, I installed a magnetic strip with 3M adhesive on the back. I also installed strips on each side of the window, and then these magnetically locked together. And now these shades block out all of the light. It's like nighttime in here, even during the day.
And now it's time to move on to our next step, updating the outlets around the room. I picked up a case of these USB combo outlets, and they should be really convenient. Updating this outlet was at the end of the line, so it was really simple. Just remember, black goes to gold, white goes to your silver screw, and green is ground. And FYI, I've got electricians coming by later today to tackle all of the complicated outlets around the whole house. I'm just doing the easy ones myself to save some money.
I also had them install the light fixture while they were here.
I think it looks pretty cool. You've been seeing these quite a bit lately?
Yeah, I've been seeing them quite a bit.
Yeah. Funky. The installation on these is just like any other light, but what I think is so neat is when you're just looking, it looks like a light fixture. The whole fan component is kind of hidden away. But in a bedroom, a fan is important, so this is a great way of getting the best of both worlds.
This also came with a remote where you can turn the brightness all the way up or all the way down. You can also change the color temperature and set a night light. And of course, control the fan.
That's a lot of air, and it is pretty quiet. The sound of it is a lot more similar to a desk fan than a ceiling fan because of the small blades. And on low, it still moves a lot of air, but it is very quiet.
Here's an example. It's quiet on high and almost silent on low. I just wish it didn't come with a black remote, dang.
Our next big step is installing baseboard trim. But first, I need to put in this door. I'll start by tearing out the old door jamb so I can put this new pre-hung door in. And if you're interested, I've done a full video breaking down how to do this for the first time so that you don't make any mistakes.
And it's ironic I just mentioned mistakes. You'll see. My door opening is a little oversized, so I used these spacers to help level everything out. So I was cutting more on my table saw when I made my biggest woodworking mistake ever. I cut the tip of my thumb off. I'm not kidding.
Hey Siri, call Dad. Hey. Yeah, I don't know how bad it is. Do you mind locking the door? Okay, so we're gonna go to the ER.
And fair warning, fast forward if you don't want to see blood. For real.
Okay, here we go. Let's hope it's not too bad. Oh, that's pretty not good. Ooh, wow. That's not awesome. Okay, I'm gonna not look at it though. Wow, this is unfortunate. So far, we're doing great. I got instructions to keep my thumb up, and then it'll stop bleeding, and then the doctor will come, and we'll check it out. Thumbs up.
The PA came in to check out the wound, and well, it looked gnarly.
Yeah, it's pretty massive. Ooh, that's not good. Oh, that sucks. Man, I wish I got one of those saw-stop saws.
Big shout out to everyone who treated me though. They gave me this splint, which really protected everything well, and I figured I would get back to building.
I guess I gotta be thankful. I still got my thumb, but I for sure need to be more careful in the future. I wore my knee pads. The whole time I was in the ER, I didn't realize I was wearing them. But yeah, I'm sure you saw the footage. It was pretty gross. Let's get this door installed.
I don't know why I installed this door in the middle of the night when I came back. I guess I just didn't want to be defeated. And plus, if I went to bed, all I would have done is just laid there thinking about how stupid I was. It was a silly mistake reaching around the backside of the blade like that. Totally user error, my bad, but public service announcement, always be safe around power tools.
That went great. I'm gonna clean up these excess shims, and then tomorrow I'll work on the molding that goes around it.
At Home Depot, you can pick up these molding pro packs that go around doors. This is square MDF primed molding, and it's in their Craftsman section. Oh, and I mean Craftsman trim, not Craftsman tools. Funny. And I'm using 2-inch long nails in my 18-gauge brad nailer. And the circular saw paired with the 12-inch speed square is great for this task. I needed to remove a little bit of drywall that was sitting proud of the door jamb just here in the corner so that the molding would sit flush. And that's door casing complete.
And as you can tell, we've got an awesome reveal everywhere. And I'm gonna stay in trim mode by cutting and installing our baseboard. Before we do though, I wanna give a big thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring today's episode. With Squarespace's new Design Intelligence, you can now harness the power of AI when creating your website. All you've got to do is tell Squarespace a little bit about your brand or business, and Squarespace will generate a custom tailored website in line with what you want to create, and then it's super easy to customize from there. If you're doing business and taking payments, Squarespace Payments is the best place to do that all in one location. Onboarding customers is quick and easy so that you can get paid, and customers get flexible, convenient payment options, including Klarna, ACH Direct Deposit, Apple Pay, Afterpay, and ClearPay. And the last thing I always highlight are Squarespace online courses, where you can turn your knowledge into income. With Squarespace, you can build your course from scratch and set a paywall, whether that's a one-time fee or a recurring subscription charge. So to learn more, make sure and follow my link down in the description, squarespace.com/modernbuilds. And then when it's time to make your site live, don't forget to use my code ModernBuilds for 10% off your first site, store, or domain through Squarespace.
For all of these pieces, I used my tape measure instead of marking them in place. And it's really a good idea to try and sneak up on these cuts so you get a snug fit.
Oh, that's perfect.
I applied 2 coats of enamel paint to this trim before installation. That way I just have to do a cleanup coat after wood filler. While installing these pieces, I had my nailer pretty low. That way I was hitting the bottom plate of my 2x4 framing. And then I made sure I was hitting a vertical 2x4 stud anywhere higher up that I was nailing. I was improvising because it was a little funky trimming out around this sliding door since I didn't have a door jamb around it. I wanted a seamless drywall look. I also had to get creative trimming underneath the shelving. I ended up splicing it in half so I could get the boards underneath, and then I caulked the seam. It ended up being invisible. After that, I made sure the doors could still close cleanly, and they looked great. I added wood filler to all my nail holes, and I sanded that down after it dried, and I applied latex caulk on all of my corners. By spraying it with a little bit of soap and water, you can clean away the latex caulk bead really easily without making a mess. And a little bit of caulk and touch-up paint ended up making this floor track look super clean and super pro.
And now it's time for paint. All I have to do is a quick finish coat since I've already built up a couple of layers before installation.
While I was at it, I also applied 3 coats of paint onto my door casing, and then I could remove all of my masking tape with no mess.
Super pro! Now that the trim is down, the room is almost complete. But before the big reveal, we're gonna stage this out so you can get a feel for the vibe that I'm going for by doing such a white palette.
The first big project for this space is the bed with this DIY slatted headboard made from plywood with a solid wood look. I've got a full tutorial on this project if you're interested in learning how to build one for yourself. And after applying a coat of simple finish to the wood, it was time to bring it in.
This bed is a little heavier than I expected. 1, 2, 3. Ta-da! And big thank you to my mom. Shout out Carrie.
Creating these positive stops in the headboard made reassembly super convenient because all of the screw holes went right back in place. One addition to the bed that wasn't in the tutorial video were these round side tables that fit into the slat of the headboard. I chose to use a dinner plate as my template because I didn't want anything very large. I wanted to maintain a lot of walking area around the bed. I applied a coat of simple finish after I edge banded these teardrop shapes, and you can see how they slide in the next shot. I added hot glue on this edge that joins with the bed because I didn't want to screw through the frame. If this ends up ever being an issue where it's not strong enough, I'll definitely do that.
And if you wanted, you can make that way larger. I just wanted something small for cell phones.
The next piece I'm grabbing is from storage at my parents' place. It's from an IKEA hack circa 2017, where I transformed this basic pine dresser.
Now the only downside to this dresser is there's knot stains where it bled through the paint. We scrubbed and they won't go away. So I think I'm just gonna do a fresh coat of enamel paint, and fingers crossed, that'll prevent any future bleeding on these knots.
Even if those knots bleed through eventually, it'll still get us through staging. I applied my brass handles back on, which do need a touch-up coat of paint, and then installed a matching mirror with a brass frame above it. I used anchors in the wall, so this was a super pro installation, and I think it looks pretty great.
I dig it.
Moving on, I opened up my next mirror, which has this really cool arch shape on the top. Feels super trendy. It's got a stand on the back, so you could set it in a corner, but I'm gonna hang it on the wall, once again, with drywall anchors. This will be a great place to get a full-length look at yourself while you're getting ready.
We've already got this masked off because this mirror would be the only black accessory, aside from that remote control, in the whole room. The plan is to paint this a low gloss, brassy gold color to match the mirror that's above the dresser. In total, I did 2 coats after that white primer.
I gave this a couple of hours to cure outside before bringing it in, and I used a razor blade around the perimeter of all of my masking tape to get a cleaner peel.
Big improvement. I like that way more now. And I don't even know where I got this, but it's cute. It's very mid-century. I stole it from my mom's place. Sorry, I will give it back soon. Perfect, that's very cool.
And now finally, I could do our last step, installing our doorknob. And now really quick, let's go check out the befores of this room. As you remember, it was small, it was cramped, but it did have potential. By taking this boring old closet and expanding it, we could make it something special. So let's check out the afters. I am beyond excited with this bedroom transformation. We went from a boring, drab space to something super contemporary and unexpected from this old of a house. What this room lacks in square footage, it now makes up for in wow factor. I just did a basic staging setup so you could get a vibe of what this room is like, and there's plenty of room with a queen-size bed for a good-sized dresser and that space to change and get ready on the other side. And you could sacrifice either one for a king-size bed if that was your priority. By far, my favorite part of this room is the new master closet. The old closet was a little bit small and it didn't utilize the space well. Pretty typical of a lot of closets, but now we've got something luxurious. This is what you would find at a hotel or an Airbnb, and I'm sure female buyers are gonna love it.
Each side is mirrored. On the end, we've got long hanging, then some more standard length, but still pretty long hanging storage. And then in the middle, there's a bunch of different shelves for clothing and shoes.
All of the doors soft close, that way nothing bangs around. And here's another close-up of that organization system. We've got drawers, we've got shoe organizers, we've got pretty much everything anybody would want.
And having this arch shape on the mirror as well as this brass piece above the bed really makes a cool theme. But I do need to get a runner rug on the floor.
Speaking of the floors, I love this luxury vinyl plank with the gray wash, and updating all of the electronics I'm sure will go a long way. This new light fan combo definitely beats the old one. Oh, and I forgot to mention the remote controlled smart shades. If you're sensitive to light when you sleep or you work odd hours, this could be a huge upgrade. Plus they can be automated.
It can be really awesome to schedule these going up in the morning, down at night, or when you leave the house. A lot of cool options.
And with some natural wood tones, these gray wash floors really balance out.
I did a rough estimate of all of my costs. In total, I spent $2,500 to renovate this room. And by creating a proper master suite, I think we have increased the value of this property by $15K. Now that could be a little bit steep, but you tell me if you think I'm right or wrong. I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments. Make sure and like, comment, and subscribe with the notification bell. And we will see you next time on Modern Builds. Ah, shoot. Dang, I just got a new camera. I gotta stop dropping this thing.